Hey everyone, welcome. It's nice to see everyone joining. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening. Everyone is from different parts of the world. So, welcome to Creative Art Time, our weekly live series where we create and talk about art together. And today we'll go over colored pencils. So I'll show you all of my favorite materials for my colored pencil drawings, which techniques I use, and also pastel pencils. I have been experimenting with them for a while now and haven't been using my regular colored pencils since. And I'll also be answering your art questions as we go, so feel free to drop them in the chat anytime. I'm going to wait a few more minutes so everyone has a chance to join. And in the meantime, I would love to hear from you if you have any experience with colored pencils, or haven't you tried color yet and just want to stick to drawing with graphite maybe? Let me know. And if you do, maybe there's a favorite brand of colored pencils you have. I would love to hear. So it's AM for you, Elise. Well, it's afternoon here in the Netherlands. It's 5 p.m., almost evening. So you discovered pastel pencil. Have you been drawing with colored pencils before, or just started using pastel pencils right away after drawing with graphite maybe? So colored pencils a bit, not a lot. Okay, so yeah, that's how I also started with colored pencils. So Marine just started with color a few weeks ago. I have many brands and now have to keep learning to use them. Yes, I think it's very fun to use color, but I got a bit, yeah, not bored, but drawing with colored pencils takes a really long time. You just have to keep on layering and layering. So when I started using pastel pencils, I discovered that you can blend them. And that's also my favorite thing about graphite or charcoal, that you can blend easily. And that's one thing I missed with colored pencils. Hello, Pascal from France. So let's get started so then I can show you everything and yeah, also share, maybe inspire you, or also let you see the differences, because first I want to go over the pencils but also the paper, because paper can really yeah, it can give you a difference. So the first colored pencils I ever bought, Janice would love to bring life of color to my drawings. Yes, I understand that. So yeah, that's all about adding depth through value. And Maureen hasn't tried pastel pencils yet, though I have a few sets. You should try them. I have used colored pencils, but not much. I have pastel pencils, but never used them. So that's the same what I have, Linda, because I also started with colored pencils, and also the same year. So I'm talking about 9 years ago. I also bought pastel pencils, but I, yeah, never really liked them. I didn't really know what to do with them. So now, 9 years later, I took them out of the closet, or yeah, drawer, and started using them again. And I was really surprised about how I enjoyed using them. Um, does anyone recommend a set? So the pencils I recommend, yeah, are you talking about regular colored pencils or the pastel pencils? So Tracy has used colored pencils for a few years, but I like to stick to one brand. I don't think I have the patience to learn new ones. Yeah, I understand that. So I started using the Polychromos Faber-Castell pencils just because they were, yeah, I could get them everywhere. In the Netherlands, I could get them at every art store. They weren't that expensive comparing to other colored pencil brands, but yeah, they are oil based, and oil based pencils are a bit, yeah, they're not as soft as wax based pencils. So I could color with them, but coming from using graphite pencils and being able to, wanting to blend, you see that I'm using a blending stump here, but nothing is happening here really with the colored pencils. So that's one thing that I didn't really like with colored pencils, but I did give them a try. So I did start using them and drawing with them, but I really had to learn how to layer and how to create depth. Lisa has Faber-Castell pastel pencils. Yeah, that's the same I have, the Pitt pastels. So after using the oil-based pencils, I bought the Caran d'Ache Luminance, and these are a bit more expensive, but I knew that I really had to try them because these are wax-based pencils and they are a lot softer and with blending. So I'm not saying you have to get all of these, but this is just my experience and how I started. I started with the Polychromos and then the Luminance, and you can really see a difference with how they blend comparing to the oil-based pencils. So I started using the Luminance pencils for like the larger areas, and then the Polychromos, I still think they're great for the details because the tip is a bit harder, they're less soft as the wax based. And I have been using these for a long time. I'm also going to show you a few drawings that I created with colored pencils. So these are drawings that are video lessons available in the colored pencil course, and that's where I teach all of the basics. So we learn how to create a sphere, but here is the difference in paper. So this is also what I wanted to show you, because if you have the colored pencils, the paper can also give you a big difference. So G started with colored pencils and then went to watercolor pencils. Now I used Caran d'Ache Neocolor watercolor crayons. Interesting. I haven't tried watercolor pencils yet because I use watercolors now, and I just like using the brush because I don't like the idea of having to color something and then using water. But yeah, maybe just like when I started using pastel pencils, I didn't like them, and then it took me a few years to try them out again. So maybe I might try watercolor pencils sometimes, but now I'm not really that interested, but I would love to try it out sometime. So talking about the paper, this is smooth paper, and this is Bristol smooth paper. And this is also the paper I use for graphite drawings. And for colored pencils, you might want to use some paper that has a bit more texture. So the Bristol vellum surface could be great because you might be able to layer a bit more with it. So I have the differences here. This is the Bristol Smooth, and this is the vellum. So here you can see the difference. I used the same colors, I added the same amount of layers, and here you can see that the color is much richer. And here you can see that with this color here. You see how darker and richer it is? And here it's a bit less saturated. And then here I have tried watercolor hot pressed paper because I thought maybe that could also give me a difference. So it's quite a bit textured, but I think it's just about the same as the vellum paper. So these are quite the same, and then the smooth paper. So I like to use the smooth paper because it's smooth. You don't have to continue to layer to get rid of that grain, but I do like that the colors on the vellum paper are richer. So for a lot of drawings in the colored pencil course, I started using the vellum paper, started layering, But eventually, when I got to drawing portraits, I started using the Bristol smooth paper. Janice asked, do you start out with graphite and then add the color? No, I do use graphite for the sketch, but then I just use colored pencils. It's all layers, layers, layers. And you can't, like graphite, smoothen with the soft tissue or with the blending stump, but it's all just about, yeah, layering, and that can take a lot of time. So yeah, this is something you can try for yourself. With the paper you have at home, you can do some blending and some layering and see which paper you prefer. And this is also, yeah, this is what I do when I practice and test out different colors, because you might get a colored pencil set and then you don't know how the colors react or how they mix. So I try them out, and then I know which colors I can use. So this is a practice we did also in the colored pencil course for skin tones. Before you start drawing portraits, I always advise to practice blending, practice layering, and this is a great way, because if you're drawing a sphere, you're practicing with creating the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. And if you think about a portrait, then like the cheeks or the nose, everything is round. So you want to be able to create smooth transitions from the highlights to the midtones to the shadows, and how you can, yeah, how you layer. And I know with colored pencils, if you just have a few layers, then you can see a bit of that, of the white, yeah, the white of the paper showing through. So with colored pencils, with the last layers, you do have to use a bit more pressure. Not really burnish the paper, but yeah, use a bit more pressure to get rid of that paper, that, you know, that white showing through. D mainly use pastel matte paper. I also got the pastel matte paper. I'm also going to show you that later. And I've been trying it out. I'm not sure yet how I like it. Do you use Gamsol? I think you mean, let me show you. I have this. This is, I think you mean this. This might be another brand, but this is Pencil Blend. Kind of like a liquid that you can use to blend the colored pencils on the paper. I have tried it once, but yeah, I didn't want to use a medium with color. I just wanted to rely on colored pencils and learn how to blend. So I just used, yeah, I don't use anything. I just use the layering of the colored pencils, building up layers. And do you use the same paper for your color study? Do you mean this? When I'm testing out my paper, my pencils, I always use the same paper as what I'm going to draw with, because you can get different results. So this is, yeah, here I also have, so when I mix, I always write down the colors, what I mix, so that I can remember, and then I swatch them and I know what to use for the next time. So these are all just skin tone swatches that I use for portraits. And this is, yeah, 300 series vellum paper. So my favorite for colored pencils is the vellum and the smooth paper. And another, so I also went over, so I'm talking about the colored pencil course, because that's where I teach everything about colored pencils. These are just different techniques that you can use. And one that I also like is the craft knife, because so this is this ceramic craft knife. G says zest it helps you get more layers in. So you can So once you add a layer of the zested, you can continue to layer more and more. Yes, I have seen other artists use it. I could have used it, but I just wanted to, yeah, keep using the colored pencils and not another medium. But I have seen other artists really have great results with it. So this is Slice. The brand is called Slice, and this is ceramic because I've also used, everyone knows a regular craft knife, but that's too sharp. So with this technique, you want to be really careful. And this technique is really, I'll show you a few examples later. Oh, I already have one here for drawing hair. So this technique, you see these bright highlights, you can never get that with an eraser. And Tara asks, is it possible to come back to and rewatch this after, by the way? Yes, for anyone who has to go or who couldn't join us live, there will be a replay available. And you can always leave a comment after the live. So you see these small highlights in the hair. There's an eraser you could use, but you can never get these really fine lines. So that's where this tool comes in. And you want to have enough layers before you use this. I have used the eraser before I had a craft knife, and this really changed everything for me, because especially when you're drawing hair, you really have these small fine details. So I thought, how am I going to get those flyaway hairs and really create that detail? Yeah, so if you've been ever been wondering what you could use, this is really a great tool to use for those small highlights. And then the embossing tool is also an option. The white marker is also an option. The Uniposca is one of my favorite. I use it with graphite pencils, with charcoal, with anything actually. You can use it for the last bright layers, but the only thing is that it could look too bright. So I don't use it with drawing hair. I use the craft knife, and that gives me better. It gives me a more natural result. And another thing I think that it's really important to understand color theory if you're going to use colors. So with colored pencils, you want to understand how they blend, how they layer. But when you're going to work with color, it's really important to understand the simple color theory, like the primary colors, the secondary colors, how everything mix, but also why this is important. I think Maureen asks, is the Posca light fast? I've never actually looked that up, and I'm not sure. I think it is, but I'm actually not sure. I'm not 100% sure. I have used it in drawings from years ago, and it still looks good. So yeah, I think it is. But you should, yeah, maybe ask Google just to be sure. So I don't want to say that it is and maybe it's not, but I think it is. It's acrylic marker. It's acrylic paint inside. And like I said, I have used it on drawings that I created 10 years ago. And if I look at the drawings now, it still looks good. Yeah, let me show you. I have one here on my desk. Let's see, this is from 2017. So I used the white marker for these brightest highlights. And if I look at it now, yeah, it still looks the same as when I drew this that year. If something isn't light fast, I know that it can look a bit, yeah, it could get yellow over time. So yeah, G says it is. Great, thanks. I also thought it was, but it wasn't sure, so I didn't want to give you any false information. But yeah, I like to use it with every drawing. I use it with graphite colored pencils. I even use it with watercolors. but that's a whole nother topic for another time. So let's stick to colored pencils. But talking about watercolors, color theory is also important to learn with every medium you use in color. So to give you an example, let's see. If you have a sphere or anything else, any other object, something that's round, you want to know which colors you're going to use for the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. And you can make it interesting, or yeah, I have it this here. So the tint means that you use a color, but then you add white, so you can make it a bit lighter. And then the tone, like the midtone, you can add gray to it. And then if you want to create a shadow, you can mix some black with the color. So for this tint, tone, and shade, I use the same blue color. But then for this, I mixed it with white. For the tone, I mixed it with gray. And for the shade, I mixed it with black. So you see how you can use the black and the gray to darken and get different values. And this is how you will create depth in your drawings. But if you're creating a colorful drawing, I wouldn't advise to use black, because that could make your drawings or paintings look a bit dull. So that's where color theory is interesting, because these are the complementary colors. And if you know how the color wheel works, then you have the yellow, and the complementary color is opposite to it. So if you're creating something that's yellow, like this pear also has yellow, it's kind of green yellowish. But if you use the complementary color, so the opposite, then you can create like a neutral color, and that's great to use for shadows. So what did I do here with this pear? I used some purples here in the shadow areas to create a more interesting look. If I would have used gray or black or just brown, you could also use like a simple brown, the colors in the drawing wouldn't look as interesting. That's what I think. And that's also, if you study like a reference photo, try to look for the colors you see. Like which colors do you see in the highlights? Which colors do you see at the midtones and for the shadows? Martina, how to mix colors for pear drawing? Yeah, I have a step-by-step video lesson inside the membership, inside the colored pencil course. It's not something that I can show now because this is like an hour. But how I mix colors, like yeah, if you understand the color theory. So I know that purple is the opposite of yellow, so that will give me an interesting shadow color. So that's why I chose purple for the shadows. Then I usually start with the midtones. So I layered the yellow, I layered some green, and then I also used the eraser for those highlights. And then I started to continue to build up the layers for the shadows and everything. So it's just about layers, layers, and layers. If you have something that's more kind of like orange, so some skin tones are orange, or yeah, pink orange, it could be interesting to use blue as a shadow color in your portrait, because orange and blue will give you like a neutral brown color, also great for shadows. And of course the orange and blue choice, the color that you choose to use, will give you a different color. So of course this is a bright orange. It's not something I use in portraits, but sometimes I just add a touch of blue to a shadow color, or a touch of green, depending on here. This I used blue here, and then here I used some green. So that makes your portrait or your drawing a bit more interesting than just using gray or brown. So that's something I use, purple, blue, or green, depending on what you're going to draw for the shadow color. So here, if you look at the color wheel, red opposite is green. So if you mix red and green together, you also get a brownish mix. Again, you can also use a light red, or here an orange red. Add just a light layer of green. Of course, you don't have to use like these saturated colors, but you just add a light layer of color just to give that interesting look. And I think that's really something important to use. Janice has to leave for now, but I'll be back later. Love your teaching. Thank you so much, Janice. I hope to see you next time, or when you can join us again. So for the hair, yeah, the same. I just add layers, and then I use the craft knife for the highlights. And here's also hair, but then men. Yeah, shorter hair. Shorter hair could be more difficult than longer hair. So after practicing all of the basics in the colored pencil course, we also go over all of the features before we start drawing portraits, because I think this is important to learn how to create something, how to create realistic features, and experiment and practice with your medium, with colored pencils in this case. These are all colored pencils, before you move on to more complicated subjects. So this is shorter hair. And then we have all of the features. And this is also, yeah, just about layering. So the first few layers look just like this, like really grainy. But then you keep on building up layers, you keep on blending, and that's how you create a nice, smooth result. And here you can also see the skin tone is kind of orange. I added a bit of blue for the shadow color to make it look more interesting. And then here, this is kind of like pink skin tone. So all of these different skin tones are also interesting to practice, because which colors are you going to use? How are you going to layer them? And then we also go, yeah, these are the noses. All of these practices are great to learn how to layer, blend with colored pencils, and then some lips practices. I chose this one to learn how to draw teeth, and also how to draw facial hair, like a mustache. Teeth can also be challenging. If you look closely, you can see that I used the white marker for the highlights, and that's a great thing to use. So here is how to, also went over how to draw braids and darker skin tones. Here I used a lot of pink and also a bit of the blue for the shadows. And it's all about layering and building up layers. Here I also used blue. Here you can see that really clearly, because this is kind of like a pinkish skin tone. So you could use blue, purple for the shadows, like here. And then this one, now that you can here clearly see that I use blue. So maybe if I don't mention it, you wouldn't see it. But if you look at this as a whole, those different colors make it more interesting. If I would have used brown, like the brown of the hair here, it would give me that depth. But I think adding more colors, more colors to your portrait make it look more interesting. Here you can see I used purple, blue, kind of like a violet blue, and then I also used some greenish, kind of like a raw umber. That's brown green for the hair. And then we also went over fur, how to draw fur. And this is also actually the same. Thank you, Elisa. Beautiful portraits. So I always say everyone can learn how to draw. You will just need to know and understand the right techniques. So we start with the sketch, and then we start with the simple first layers. And maybe some of you who are beginners, you look at this and you think, oh, so Elisa hopes to be as good as you. Thank you so much. And I think it's all about practice. So if you start at the beginning and you practice and practice and you're motivated to continue to practice, then I think you can also be able to draw this. There are lots of members who created this one as well and have great results. So if you look at this, you might not know how to create this, but if you start and go layer by layer, and then you remember those steps, you remember the techniques, you know how colored pencils work and how they layer, then you know that you can use the same techniques to create any other drawing, any other portrait. So fur, if you know how to draw hair, then it's actually the same technique. So it's adding layers, and again using the craft knife for those brightest highlights or those lightest hairs. For this one I actually used white. Let me show you the white acrylic marker here. So that's also an option. I don't like to use it with hair, but with fur, fur has just kind of like a different texture. So here with this dog, I also used white. You can see that for the whiskers. It is a bit tricky, so I would practice that on another piece of paper first. But here I used the craft knife, and for the whiskers I used the white marker. So for the background I used Pan Pastel, because yeah, I thought, am I going to color that all in with colored pencil? Well, that could actually this could be great to use. Someone mentioned the Gamsel or Zested. I know some use this for creating backgrounds as well, but I just have great results with the Pan Pastel. This is Pan Pastel, and you can just use a larger sponge and then just create backgrounds that way. And also I tried to create kind of like a blurry effect, and because it's pastel, you can blend it really easily, and that helped to create this background, because I don't think I can create that same effect with colored pencils. And that's why I also thought, hey, maybe I could use pastel pencils, because the thing with pastel pencils, thank you, Linda, the dog is amazing. One thing with this, with colored pencils, is that you can't use the white. Elisa asks, do you fix your painting? Yes, with when I use pastel here for the background, then I spray fixative. It's just a matte. Let me get it real quick. This is the fixative I have, and yes, this is this. I can use this for graphite, charcoal, pastel, colored pencil. So for my regular colored pencil drawings, I don't use a fixative because you can't really smudge it. But when I add pastel, then you can. Dee says Pan Pastels work great with colored pencils. Yes, definitely. So I only had Pan Pastel and colored pencils before I started working with pastel pencils. But the thing with colored pencils, what I wanted to say, is that you can't really use lights over darks. Like the white, this is the white luminance. You can see that I use it quite a lot because I used it to blend. You can use the white luminance, see that? Because it's a darker, but the white polychromos doesn't really, because this is wax based and this is oil based. So you could use the white luminance, the wax based colored pencil a bit. But the great thing about pastel pencils is that you can go dark over light and light over dark again. So let's look at the pastel pencils. And someone already asked what I use for the pastel pencils, and that's just the Faber-Castell Pit. These are the first ones I bought. Pit Pastel Faber-Castell. So I have a set of 60, and I just swatched them all, and I chose these colors I use. So these are 46 colors. I chose these because you don't have to use the whole pencil set, but yeah, these are the ones I use the most. Yeah, so these are swatches of the pastel pencils. I have tried out using different paper with the pastel pencils, and I've experimented a bit. So let's see, this is the first one. Lisa has 24 colors. I didn't know there's also a 24 color set. So I'm not sure which colors of these are all. I wish they would have the names, but they only have the numbers. So I have the numbers written down, and then I have named these like the beige, the brown ochre. So I have the, yeah, like the brown ochre family, the burnt ochre family, because I'm used to that, because the luminance pencils, they do have the names on it, and they have the brown ochre, different colors. They have the burnt ochres, they have the burnt siennas, and then different reds, pinks. So that's, I just stick to that and try to search for the colors that are similar to what I normally use with the luminance pencils. So yeah, the white and the beige, the brown ochres, the burnt ochres are more orange, the burnt siennas, the red, pink, violet, blue, turquoise, green, and brown. Yeah, and gray and black. So I do use black with color sometimes, but that's actually only when I want to really darken. So normally I use, like, this is the 175. This is a really dark brown, really dark blue. That's what I use to deepen, like, let's say here, deepen the inside of the mouth. I wouldn't use a black for that. But let's say if you use a black, then I always go over that with another color, so that you don't really, because if I use black, I don't have black here now, then you would really see it would look really harsh. Carbothello Carbothello don't have color names on theirs either. I like having the names on them. Yes, I wish. Yeah, okay, so that's also a brand, Carbothello. I've seen other artists use that brand. It's also one I would like to try. I think it's kind of like here with these brands, with the polychromos. This is the Faber-Castell. And then you have the Caran d'Ache Luminance. These are the more expensive ones, but they are the better ones. Well, in my experience. I've seen others say that these Faber-Castell pastel pencils are good enough, but then the Carbothello are the better ones. I don't want to buy another brand more expensive, because I'm not sure for how long I'm going to be drawing with the pastel pencils, because it's also a shame that I'm not really using the colored pencils anymore. But I've heard that the Carbothellos are even softer. So yeah, I'm just going to stick to the Faber-Castell Pit pencil, because that's what I already have, and yeah, they work, they're good. So to show you this example, this is regular colored pencils, and these are the pastel pencils. And yeah, of course I could have gone in more detail here, but I just kind of rushed. So the thing what I liked here is that I could blend. I could create a really soft and nice effect with the pencils. And I already had this tool. This is like a small sponge applicator. Hello Gisela, nice that you could join us. I hope you get better soon. So this is one I already had with the Pan Pastels, and I tried it out with the pastel pencils, and it works really great. But you can also just use a regular blending stump. This is one I always use with graphite or charcoal, so you can also use that. But I also have this this one. I'm not really sure what it's called. If you're interested, you can always ask me and I can give you a link. This is just something I bought on Amazon. It's a small spongy thing here. And this is what I use for blending. So on this paper, this is mixed media tan paper. This is can you buy an open stock? Do you mean that you can just buy one or two? Is that what that means, open stock? That you don't have to buy a whole set? I think I bought a set of these, like 2 smaller ones, 2 bigger ones, and yeah, not expensive, from Amazon. Yeah, Elisa says that's, yeah, so yes, open stock. I also just buy things myself to try. So yeah, these are great. The paper. So why I wanted to try out toned paper with pastel pencils is because with regular colored pencils I used white paper for the background, but I think that if you start with toned paper, it really gives a nice, interesting, interesting, soft look, because you already have color for the background. So I think that it makes the colors pop even more. Here's another example. These flowers. So if you compare it to the white paper, could look a bit harsh. It could pop, but I think that having a background, it really adds something to it. This is pastel pencils, by the way. So after working with colored pencils on white paper, I saw this eye drawing that I created years ago on this light paper, and I thought, oh, I really like how this background really gives kind of like a touch. So that's when I started to search for toned paper and wanted to try that out for the pastel pencils. But I'm not really sure. Oh, you were referring to the pit pencils. Yeah, so open stock means, can you just buy the pencils individually? I think that's what you mean. Yes, you can. That's why I created this, so that the members can just choose which pencils they like, so they don't have to buy a whole set. Because I wouldn't recommend buying a whole set, because you might not use all of those colors, because they choose which colors are included in the set. So I don't really have a favorite paper yet. I also have this. I'm curious if anyone knows this paper. This is Clairefontaine, and I know that Pastel Matte is from Clairefontaine, but this is Paint On Mixed Media. This is 250 GSM. I also have the Pastel Matte, and this is 360 GSM, so it's a bit thinner than the Pastel Matte, but I like that it's that the paper is smoother. So this is the paper. This is Paint On Mixed Media, and then this paper is this one. So here you can see the difference. I just tried this one, and I didn't really notice a big difference. They both worked great. I could blend them. I liked how really easily I could blend it just with a brush, but also how easily, or brush with a sponge, and how easily I could layer. So I also tried these out. This is on the mixed media paper Strathmore, just to compare. Again, I didn't really notice a difference, but yeah, just that this, you see, how do you call that? Those things, those lines on the paper. I'm not sure how you call that. Kind of like that pulp of the paper, or yeah, I'm not sure what the name is, but I'm not really a fan of that. So I like just a smoother texture. But yeah, if you have a favorite, I know that most artists that work with pastel like pastel matte. So of course I had to try pastel matte too. And yeah, I did another study, and I actually was kind of surprised because I thought if I feel pastel matte, yeah, it's not like sandpaper. I'm not sure if you have ever felt um, pastel paper. It can feel like sandpaper. I never liked that texture. Thank you so much, Dee. I appreciate it. Vanessa says pastel matte is the most amazing paper to use for pastels. It can take many layers. Yes, that's what I heard from others too. So I'm going to take it from you too. That I'm going to experiment more with pastel matte. And I think that this paper, because it's a bit thinner, it smudges better. But I think I could continue to layer more on this paper because it holds the pastel better. So I think that's also the thing. So if I just look at the difference, I don't really notice a big difference in end result, but there's just something that I did like about the blending and the layering. So I think I want to experiment more with the pastel matte. So I also have this one. And this has the beige, the sand color, and that's because if I compare, this, I don't know about you, but I really like how soft, or not sure how this, yeah, how the colors look. Here you see that the white background really, I don't know, it looks harsh almost. So maybe this paper is great when you're going to add a whole background to a, like just color it all in, creating a whole background. But with this paper, you don't have to create a background because it already has that tone. Vanessa says there's no need to fix pastels if you use pastel matte, so no risk of changing your colors. Okay, so you don't have to use a fixative. And also I can already feel that it's not really smudging as much as this. I would need to be really careful with this other paper. So yes, I'm already sold to use pastel matte, but then I would use these. Let's see, this is the beige. This is the beige color. No, this is the sand. No, this lighter one is the beige color. You can see it's quite comparable to this color. And then I have, this is the sand. So it's a bit darker, and it's maybe no, it's darker. You see that? This one is lighter, and then this is sand, it's darker. So I'm really curious to see how this would turn out on this paper, the toned paper. Or maybe draw like a beautiful, so let's see, if you have smudges on your paper, let's see how well this goes with the new eraser. Just easily clean up anything. So that's great about this paper. It also erases easily. And what I wanted to say with the lighter, I don't have any lighter pencils here now, but you can easily layer light over dark. And it blends really well. I've noticed that with this brush, and because this pastel has a bit or the pastel matte has a bit of texture, it's not good for this little sponge. And this is a bit harder. This, I'm not sure what kind of material it is. Which erasers do you recommend? Mine always smudge. I recommend this one, this little one. This is also great for, I'm not really sure how, let's just try this. I also use this to create highlights in my drawings. So let's just erase this part that I just added. I also have a regular, let's see, it's just a regular eraser, Faber-Castell. I don't really have a favorite brand of erasers that I use, but this one is great because it has a smaller tip, which I use for highlights or any smaller, any brighter areas that I want to erase. So I would recommend this one, Tombow Mono Zero. And then I use this one if I really need to erase larger areas. Let's say that I'm creating a sketch and I made a mistake and I really need to erase something. Or I use the kneaded eraser, which is great because you don't get those eraser crumbs. So this paper erases quite well, you see that? And I also use this one if I need to lighten anywhere. I just like dab on the paper and just lighten like that. Do you use a soft tools for blending my colored pencils on pastel matte? Do you use regular colored pencils? Like which brand do you use on your pastel matte? And soft tools, I also have those. Let me get them real quick. So I think this is what you mean. Because these are what I got with the Pan Pastels. These, I think you mean these soft tools. Yeah, here you say it says soft. So you have them in sponges and this, but here you can see that I use this one quite a lot, and it's already I can't really use this one anymore. And I think that with the pastel matte, but it's great for blending. Camilla says it's easier to make highlight with Scotch tape when using pastel matte. Okay, interesting. I have also, so you put down the Scotch tape and then just remove it. But how do you smoothen it then? Because don't you get like harsh edges from the tape edge, you know, from the edges of the tape? Juma asked, do you also paint or do you stick to drawing? Yes, I also, since 3 years ago already, I also created a full watercolor course inside the membership, all the way from beginners to advanced. So yes, I paint with watercolors now. And it's really interesting because if you're used to dry medium, then it's really something that you will need to practice with and experiment with. But I really love the effect of watercolors. Let me quickly show you a portrait. So this is watercolors, but I actually want to go over watercolors in another session because that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, since we're going over colors, yeah, this is watercolors. Also very interesting medium, challenging, but interesting. And if you understand color, like I mentioned, you can use, you just need to learn how to use the medium. So I really need to learn how to get used to painting with water. One thing that was really a struggle for me was waiting for the layers to dry because, with the dry medium, you can just go over it, continue to go over it. You don't have to wait. With watercolors, you have to wait for the layers to dry. that was one thing I struggled with, and also the blending. But yeah, once you know the right techniques, you can just create, again, you can create anything with it. It's all about practice. You draw on the tape. Yeah, so you put the Scotch tape down, and then you draw on it to create highlights, and then you pull that area up. I have seen that. I use small white soft tools. Yeah, there are different ones. Since I tried out this, I prefer it over the soft tools. But these are just things that, you know, and every artist has their own preference for different kind of materials or different techniques. So I'm not saying what's right or wrong. It's just things that I've tried, and yeah, what works for me. Nice. Just wanted to know. Thanks. I'm also an artist. That's great. So which medium do you use? So that's the pastel pencils. I definitely want to continue working with pastel matte. You're welcome, Michelle. All questions I had were answered regarding pastels. Great. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, so again, if you understand color, you can just use anything. I'm not really a fan of this paper. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick to the pastel matte, but also to this one, the paint on natural, because this is soft, smooth, and I like this, how this toned paper, how this looks. So that's everything about colored pencils. And yeah, the thing with pastel pencils is that you can easily blend after each layer with a tool, but I also liked that you could really easily go over it again with white. With the regular colored pencils, you really need to plan in advance and go from light to dark. It's also the same with watercolors. You really need to plan in advance. So that's not really a bad thing. It's just something that you will need to keep in mind to know how to layer and everything. Okay, so yeah, I think that's it about all of the materials. I would love to hear yeah, what you like to draw, what kind of topic you would like to draw. So Juma sticks with drawing in graphite and ink, and also any kind of painting. Great, yeah. I actually sometimes I think, why can't I just stick to one medium? Like, you know, some artists just use graphite and they just draw with graphite for years, or they use colored pencils and they're really like professional colored pencils, and they create beautiful artwork just with colored pencils. Or you have some watercolor artists and they're really great in what they do. So I kind of like, yeah, have an interest for different kind of medium. There's something that I do enjoy, and that's like creating portraits or animal portraits. So that is my favorite thing. But which medium is my favorite, I'm not really sure, because I'm kind of like interested in different mediums. And sometimes I wish that I could just stick to one and then just continue with that. But yeah, I kind of like, I see others create with a certain material or certain medium, and I think, hey, I want to try that too. I think that's kind of interesting. Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate it. Elisa likes portraits, yeah. Camilla would like to draw portraits with colored pencils. Yeah, it's colored pencils is interesting. I would say start with the basics, start learning the basics of layering, learn how to create something realistic, like just with a simple pear drawing. Because if you can start with a simple sketch outline and create like layer and make this pear drawing look realistic and create depth. Once you know that, then you can also use those techniques to create a realistic looking portrait. Dee draws portraits. Great. And Linda loves the challenge of learning something new. Yeah, I think that's also the same with me. Just challenging myself and experimenting with other things, trying out new things. But I always stick to the same topic. Well, I also have, with watercolors, I started trying experimenting with flowers, because I don't really have an interest drawing flowers with colored pencils, but with watercolors, because it really flows. But again, I want to go over watercolors, another time. And I'm also going to show you the differences and what I created. Jack of all trades, master of none. Lol. Yes, that's also what I think. Why can't I just stick to one and then just master it? Why do I always have to make it difficult for myself? Because if you start using a new medium, you're actually kind of a beginner again. Well, if you understand color, then you will know. But you start at level 0 again. So you're master in graphite, and you master it, and you think, yes, it's all going well. But then you decide to start colored pencils, and then you're like, oh no, how does this medium work? I'm a beginner again. And that's really, I think it's interesting, and I like the challenge of that. So, but I have years of experience, and I feel a lot more comfortable now. In the beginning, I wasn't. So try not to compare yourself to other artists, because your journey is, every artist's journey is different. So that's what I would say. Never compare yourself to others. That's good advice. Start small, then go big. That's what I do also, yes. And it's also just, what you're interested in learning. Okay, so I think that's it for today's session. I hope you enjoyed this creative art time, and thank you so much for joining me, everyone. Next week, there won't be a live session on Thursday, because the doors to the Artistic Journey membership is open for a week for new members to join. But if you have any suggestions for the topic to one of these next sessions, or maybe you still have a question, feel free to drop it in the comments. And so if you haven't heard about the Artistic Journey yet, it's an online art membership where you can learn how to draw. So the full drawing course is included, from basics to advanced, but also the colored pencil course. If you're a beginner or already have been drawing for a while, the courses are for all skill levels. There's also a watercolor course, like I mentioned, for anyone interested in watercolors, and also monthly fun art projects, including pastel pencils, like I showed here. So these are just to stay inspired and to experiment with different mediums, try new things, but also to help you to continue to improve your skills. There are also monthly critique sessions to give feedback and help members improve, and also an art community. So everything is included inside the membership for just $23 per month. If you're interested in joining, you can join the waitlist, and you will be the first to know when you can join us. So the doors will open on July 1st. If you have any questions, you still have any questions, now's the time to ask, or you can always just leave a comment under the video after the live session if you're watching this later. So let me check. I would love to master charcoal. Yes, in the membership. So Maureen asks, what is the Artistic Journey? That's my online art membership, where I have art courses, like the drawing course, where it takes you from beginner all the way to advanced. But if you're maybe already drawing for a while and you want to explore color, then we have the colored pencil course and the watercolor course, also from the basics all the way to advanced drawings like portraits. And we also have monthly art projects, like these simple ones with pastel pencils, to continue your artistic journey. And we also use charcoal. So in the art projects, I'm also experimenting more with charcoal and combining graphite and charcoal together. I went over this in one of the previous live sessions of Creative Art Time when I went over the graphite and charcoal materials, but charcoal is great to add to graphite and really create that dark depth. So I thank you everyone. Yes, you're welcome. Elisa would like a demo on pastel pencils. Yes, I'm also planning to do that because I want to experiment more with Clairefontaine with the pastel mat. And I want to, yeah, see which materials work and how to, the differences, how it layers and everything. So I think we're going to do that for one of the next sessions. You can join the waitlist. There's a link under this video. Or you can if you don't find it, you can always send me an email to info@emikalia.com if you have any other questions, or you can also leave a comment under this video once the session is over, and I will read every comment, every email, so I can get back to you. We're opening July 1st, so that's next Tuesday. I love to welcome new members. But after next week, there will be another session of Creative Art Time. So that's it for today. And I hope to see you all next time. Again, thank you so much for joining, everyone. So have a nice day or evening. Bye.